to another edition of our Cyber in the Spotlight series, a forum where Hayes invites cybersecurity leaders from across the globe to share their insights on trends, challenges, and opportunities in the cybersecurity domain. I'm Mike Beaupre, head of cybersecurity at Hayes, and today I am absolutely delighted to speak with Nikk Gilbert. Nikk is the CISO of the RWE Group, a German based DAX 40 firm with over 120 years of experience and one of the world leaders in renewable energy. With over 18,000 employees and 24 billion a year in annual revenue, RWE is the third largest supplier of alternative energy sources in the world. Nikk, welcome to the show. We are so happy you can join us.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Great to be here. Excited.
Thanks, Nikk. Maybe you could start out by just telling us a little bit about your background and how you ended up where you are today.
Oh, well, that would take a couple of hours, man. I don't think we have that long. So, just real quick. So I've been a CISO now for going on 25 years. I worked for the Department of Defense. I've worked for multinationals like Alstom from France. I've also worked for the Department of the Navy, the Department of the Army, financial services organizations in the U.S., diversified companies in the U.S. as well, ConocoPhillips, another one. I've had some really interesting gigs all across the globe. So it's been quite the adventure being a CISO for a multitude of verticals in a multitude of countries.
No, such a pretty amazing and diverse set of companies you've supported, Nikk. I'm sure you've seen it all. You didn't start as a cybersecurity professional, though, right? What did you actually start as? That's interesting, I think, to our viewers.
Well, yeah, I actually started my career. I joined the military, and I was a military police officer. So I don't know if that, security and security go together somehow or not. But yeah, I started my career. My first duty station was here in Germany. So here I am again, back to Germany for the third time. So the first time was as an Army military policeman. Second time was working for the Army in IT, and now the third time in Germany is working for this big energy company as in corporate security. So it's definitely like I said, it's been really wild being able to have such cool assignments all across the globe. And I would say, I come from this little bitty town in the middle of nowhere, population of about 2,300 people along the Mississippi River in Minnesota. And you have a choice to make when you live in a little town like that. It's gas station, grocery store, or military. And fortunately, I chose the military, and they sent me straight off to Germany, and that's just how it all began.
Excellent, excellent, excellent choice, Nikk. We're so happy you made that choice. So from small town to police officer to military career to cybersecurity aficionado across multiple domains. That's a diverse and exciting background, and really looking forward to an informative dialogue with you. We got some questions prepared for you to help us kind of have that dialogue. You ready for those questions?
Well, all right, let's see what you got for me.
Okay, let's fire away. So over the past 2 years, there's been a lot of things happening in the world, right? So what general trends have you observed in the cybersecurity market over those past two very dynamic years we've experienced in the world?
Oh man, there are so many things going on. I think just to focus on one thing, let's talk threat. There's a lot of things we can talk about. We can talk about employment. We can talk about, what the new tech is. But at the end of the day, what are we really here doing? It's trying to protect our organizations from the bad guys. And over the last 2 years, I've seen, an accelerated, how do you say that? Accelerated growth of attacks across all industries. It used to be where maybe the media is playing it up more, but sure, we had this data breach and that data breach, and you'd hear about it every quarter or maybe one a month or something. But now it's like almost daily. I have this thing I do when I come in the morning. I go to Bleeping Computer, I go to Hacker News, I go to a couple of local German sites, news sites, a couple other security sites, and every day there's a multitude of ransomware this or data leak that or some type of crypto this or that someone's been taking advantage of. And it's not just the little things anymore. It's big companies. Like this morning, I was reading there's a flaw in Microsoft OneNote that bad guys can send malicious content through. And I was just like, well, that's something I hadn't heard of. So I put the team on that right away. So it's an everyday event to be a CISO, to keep up on everything. And the trend is, I mean, you have the Ukraine crisis. You have just in the last year, it's been Log4j, it's been Ukraine, it's been rent. I mean, there's just so many things that are going on. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's the CISO's day is, I can imagine, never dull. Having been one in the past, I can't even compare what it was in the past to what it must be now. I mean, just a daily increase of attacks, and this phenomena we have this, our digital attack surface is just exponentially growing with all these things happening. With IoT, with 5G, yeah, and all companies getting on the bandwagon for supporting digital growth and transformation initiatives. That just makes the attack surface exponentially large. As you mentioned, you look in the news, you just see this constant uptick of activities happening, breaches, ransomware, as you mentioned. So how is the CISO community really coming together to address these attacks and this uptick in threats and this just advancement of cyber attacks across this very diverse and really, what's the right word I'm looking for here? This very diverse and expansive ecosystem we have in the digital world.
Well, I think, one of the big keys for me is as a global network of peers and partners and friends. That's one of the things that not only, from a professional perspective, but from a personal perspective keeps me going. I love what I do. I wouldn't do anything else. I've been a CIO as well. I wouldn't want that job anymore. I really like being a CISO, and the people I've met and the network I've built over the last couple of decades really helps so much. I mean, I'll call up a friend in Iceland. And I'll say, "Hey, have you seen this? What are you doing about this?" He's a CISO at Icelandic Power, the Icelandic Power Company. I'll call him up, or I'll call up my one of my former chiefs of staff or executive officers or chief engineers and say, "Hey, what are you guys doing about this?" The whole thing is there's just not enough time, so you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I'm a big believer in using outside resources. We need help. Even when you're fully staffed, which doesn't ever happen. Imagine a world where you'd still need extra help. So for me, it's about that global reach of being able to talk to anybody in any time zone at any time to be able to get an answer.
Yeah, these global coalitions and partnerships, and I think you're driving part of this CISOs of Europe initiative in Frankfurt. I think there was something that happened just recently that together, sharing best practices and just
right. The Evanta event from Gartner. Yeah, that's a big deal. There's over 100 European CISOs in the Evanta group, and it is really all about connecting and not having to reinvent the wheel and saving time because there's never enough hours in the day. My very first IT boss, he told me, he says, "Nick, your inbox is never going to be empty." Now he was actually talking about the paper inbox on my desk at the time, but it sure does work for the 21st century as well.
Certainly does. So you mentioned also being fully staffed, and some companies are able to staff themselves quite effectively, and some companies really struggle with that. I'm just curious, from your various backgrounds and the various roles you've worked in, how do you attract and retain cybersecurity talent, and what challenges have you faced in these various roles trying to do this?
Yeah, so, this is a really unique problem to solve. I've heard many people talk about, oh, we can't get the staff or we can't find the right qualified people. And there are a number of ways to kind of help build what would you want to call that? I'm not even sure what the word is. I don't want to say stable. It sounds kind of barbarian, but a stable of people, what you can tap to have, to hire. There are programs that you can build your own. We here at RWE, we have We hire interns. We have college interns. We have master interns. We've got a really good program where you can grow your own. Then there's partnerships with universities. Different companies that I've been in, they'll go out to universities and they'll try to recruit cybersecurity talent out of the university. When the people graduate, giving them a guaranteed job already. I mean, the market is really, really hot for cyber right now. There's if I was giving anybody any advice that was going to be a freshman this year in college, it would be get into cyber, because not only is it a lot of fun, you can make a lot of money too if you're really good at what you do. So that's always a bonus. Having fun and making money. That for me has been a key for many, many years. But I think that there is a serious lack of people out there that are your traditional cyber people. So you've got to look at it from a different perspective. And that's something that I've been doing for about 15 years. I try to pull people from other places. I don't just try to go for the cyber people. I go for the risk people. I go for the IT people. Right now I'm looking to hire an assistant, and even the assistant, I'm like, hey, maybe we can find someone who is interested in the cyber, doesn't have a ton of experience, but will come in as the department admin, learn a bunch, and then be able to move into a position later on. I mean, you just have to get really creative with the way the job market is, and I mean, especially here in Germany, there are some serious challenges. 3-month notices, 6-month notice to get out of your job and start the new job. These are things that are unheard of in some countries, but here in Germany, it's a special thing, and it takes a lot of advanced planning and extra effort to make sure that you're going to keep your staff full.
Yeah, and that's a great point about the challenges, some of the dynamics we face here in Germany that other countries also don't face. And so I would suppose that once you've got that talent, you want to keep it close to your heart and not lose that talent. So what kind of talent retainment strategies do you apply?
Another super great point. Everyone that I've hired in the last 6 months, I've sent them the training the first month they've been in the company.
Great.
This is a little thing that I do that people absolutely are just blown away by. They're like, you're going to send me to training already? I'm like, it all goes back to one of the first Windows 95 classes I ever went to. So I'd been in IT for probably a year to a year and a half. I hadn't had any training. It was all, trial by fire. And then I went to a course in Schwetzingen, Germany, run by I can't remember what the name of the company. Oh, Intense Boot. No, what was it? I can't remember the name of the company. Anyway, they were providing Landschafer out of, I think they're out of Schwetzingen or something. I went to a Windows 95 class. And then suddenly he was like, if I would have only known this a year ago, I could have saved myself so much work. So I like to talk to the people when they come in. I'm like, what are you interested in? What are we going to have you do? Look at what their job position is. And then we send them off to a SANS course or if they've got a particular course that they like, that they want to go to. I have no problem investing in my people. I want them to be happy. I want them to want to come to work. I want them to be trained. I don't want them to reinvent the wheel. So, that is ideally for me, the way to do it is through training. Now, obviously there are other little perks and things. When I first came into let me rephrase that. Whenever I come into a new role, I always evaluate the staff salary, where they at. And 9 out of 10 times, it's not where it should be. It's always lower. So usually in any organization, everyone gets a bump when I come in too, which is a nice thing to do. So you get some loyalty there. You get some people who are like, oh, that's great. So there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of keep the people that you have that you really want.
Those are excellent strategies, Nikk. Really appreciate you sharing those with us. You mentioned this whole upskilling and training and keeping people engaged because the domain changes so fast, right? So I got another question for you along that same thread. How important are IT security certifications to your recruitment strategy, and which certifications in particular do you view as the most valuable?
I think they're valuable to a certain extent. I think early on in your career, it shows you're hungry. You're a professional, you're into cyber, maybe you've got they didn't have cyber degrees when I went to college. You know, the way that you showed that you were interested would be either by how you worked, or you would, you know, ask for training, you'd go for certifications. And back in the early 2000s, having a CISSP was a big deal. I mean, it was the certification, and then the government required CISSP certification. I forget which DoD reg it was, but eventually they came out and said you had to have this. So it was a really good thing for those people who had gone out and got their CISSP and their CISM and did their due diligence and things like that. I think it also shows a desire to continue to learn and to grow from where you are from one day to the next. So I think all those things show, you know, why certifications are important. But then I think there's a certain point in your career, like me, right? I have the certifications. What more can I do? You know, do I really need another certification? You know, I don't need 50,000 letters behind my name to tell people who I am. You know, I think CISSP and CISM, and that's usually all I do, if I do that at all. It's just to a point where at a CISO level, you better know what you're doing, or they're going to find out really quickly you don't know, and you're not going to be a CISO for that long. So I don't think any certification is going to help you at a senior level, but at a starter level or a junior level, I think it's important. It's part of the program that we run. I've run in the past and run here. You know, won't require, but we'll highly recommend you go out and get your CISSP or your CISM, just to help the employee out, even if they don't really believe certifications are important. It gives them a new perspective, gives them a different way of looking at things, and yeah, I definitely think it's an important thing early on.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think you were mentioning DoD regulation 8570, I think it was, something like that.
I think that's the one, yeah.
And if I remember correctly, it actually, if you had elevated rights on a system or a network, you had to have a certain set of security certifications. And if you managed people who did that, you also had to have a certain level of security awareness and certification, even as their manager, which I think is a pretty unique approach, that not just the people doing the work, but the people leading the work have to have this certain level of knowledge and certification. And then, as you said, once you've gotten these certifications and established yourself, then you start moving beyond that, and experience really takes over, if I understood you correctly. Yeah.
I mean, if I was going to go to any course, I'd probably like to go to maybe some type of advanced risk management course, or data privacy course, or you know, something that's going to help me help the business course. I don't know what that would even look like, but you know, one of the big things that I've been pushing for the last 15 years was running security as a business, and you know, talking to the business in a way where their eyes don't roll in the back of their heads and they don't know what you're saying. You know, when I engage with the board, you know, you do not want to talk. An acronym should not come out of your mouth, nor should any technical words whatsoever. It should be a very business-oriented conversation. I've been saying that for a long time, and I believe it more today than ever.
Yeah, I think you see this phenomenon increasing. So I also come from the same school of thought and from the same background as you, where if you're speaking to the board of directors, you're speaking in business language, and you're bringing the relevance of security principles and approaches to optimize the business and support and improve the business, and not, you know, just bogging them down in technical jargon and getting them confused, but really getting their mind and understanding to show how you exist as a security professional to help their business thrive and do better. And I think you see that phenomenon increasing over the last few years as more and more people are realizing that the business should take ownership of and be heavily involved in cybersecurity approaches, not just a technology problem. I think it's very.
And you absolutely have to understand that the business is where it's at. Your server is not important anymore. Nobody cares about your server. It's about the business. And that sounds kind of, you know, crass or rude maybe, but it's absolutely true. When I come into an organization, I'll get a quick, you know, download of what we have from a technology perspective, but I'm out there meeting the business unit sector presidents. I'm digging in. Okay, how do we make money? How do we do this? You know, okay, so how do we operate? When I first got into the oil and energy space, I spent probably 6 months with some really smart people, not just in Gartner, but in the company itself, learning about the oil and energy space. How do we make money? What does the supply chain look like? How do we operate? What are the different ways that we do this? What kind of oil? How do we extract it? In here in RWE, it's excuse me, we have wind, we have hydro, we have bio, we have nuclear, we have coal, we have all of these different renewables and traditional power generation techniques. It's just phenomenal. It's super interesting, and I think that's one of the things that I like most about moving from vertical to vertical is just getting to learn a whole new type of business.
Yeah, that there's tremendous value. And we talk about diversity often, and industrial diversity is one of the most powerful forms of diversity you can experience. Seeing what's happening in different business sectors and bringing that knowledge and experience to another one to help them fight effectively against cybercrime the way you did in other industries. That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Nikk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I would also add one more little piece of the puzzle here.
yeah.
Sure, oil and energy production, manufacturing, very interesting. But one of the things that I think that really gave me a leg up was working in financial services because it's so highly regulated. It's so strenuous. I mean, I had the SEC coming down on me all the time. I had this state office, this federal office. And I did that for about 4 years, and it really gave me a taste of what a highly regulated environment means. And that allowed me to go to, the next job and the next job. And I'm not saying I'm trying to apply the same rigorous requirements, but it certainly helped give them options they'd never heard of before.
So, Nikk, in your experience, do you feel that CISOs are adequately staffed to support their organizational needs? And if not, what are the hottest, most in-demand skill sets you think these CISOs need to protect their organizations in general?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge in each organization that you're in to articulate what you do, how you do it, and why you need the people that you need to have on staff. And yes, there are, obviously key people, from the threat intel people to the offensive security people to the firewall people to the identity and access management people. To me, everybody's important. We all have a piece of the overall cyber puzzle. So which ones are harder to find? Right now, I think, in my experience, leadership, people that are in senior positions that are willing to take on leadership roles are probably the toughest role to fill, in my experience.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I see that same trend. We analyzed 17,000 vacancies across Germany, and number 4 in that whole thing was leadership and governance type roles and being able to lead and manage organization. And we see this phenomenon happening because there's so many technical folks out there who are still needed in their technical roles, and it's very hard to move them and to promote them into these leadership roles without thinning out that technical pool. So I kind of agree with you. I see this whole filling and finding leaders in the domain is a critical and very important step that can help us also address some of the other shortfalls that we see across the domain. So,
yeah, and it's tough when you get to that point in your career. I remember the boss I was talking to. I remember I can see myself sitting at his desk, and he told me, he says, "Nikk, you're going to have to decide. Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to put on the tie and squeeze out all the IT knowledge, or do you want to be a SME? Do you want to be a subject matter expert?" And ever since the very beginning, even as my first job as a military police officer, I wanted to be a leader. From the time that I was probably 18 years old. So I knew right away I knew which path I was going to go. I tried not to squeeze all the knowledge out, but I wanted to be a leader. I love being a leader. I love leading people. I think it's the people that make the job fun. And yeah, so.
No, that's really great. Thanks for sharing that, Nikk. That's a great experience you shared with us. So I think if the industry works together with the regulatory agencies and bodies to kind of help make these expert career tracks so people can stay experts, but also promote these leadership career tracks and maybe even bring people from outside the domain into leadership positions so that we can have a mix of both. That'd be probably ideal. What do you think about that?
Definitely. We can work with people from any area. You don't have to be a cyber pro to work in cyber. Sure, you're not going to start out as a CISO, but I love having the diversity of thought. When I was in Elston, I had people from 27 different countries on my team. I felt like I had a global think tank that we could solve any problem in the world. and that's what I really, really love. I love having, when I was in the States, my last two assignments were in the US. I really missed that international aspect to everything. And now that I'm back over here, I've got staff in a multitude of countries and people from all over the place. I just absolutely love that.
Yeah, that's a really powerful bouquet of innovation and unique perspectives from across diverse cultures and in diverse areas to help you build a strong and powerful capability. So it sounds like you got a really great organization to lead, and a lot of great opportunities for you there, Nikk. So I'd like to say thank you for this excellent and wonderful dialogue that we've had, and also these insights that you shared. Truly, we appreciate the scope and the magnitude of what you're building and what you're doing at RWE, and also your contributions to the CISO community as a whole, beyond what you do at RWE, helping bring together all those fellow CISOs to fight against this common enemy together. So thank you, Nikk, so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. It's great to be here.
And we have just a quick word to all those out there viewing this before we go. Our Hayes Global Cybersecurity Survey that we launched had over more than 1,000 responses from across the world. And we truly appreciate all the wonderful input and insights you gave us into that. And these results have been compiled and they're on the street, ready to be shared and to be discussed with you. So please just reach out to me or to anybody at Hayes to get some insights into those cybersecurity questions that we asked across the whole global community, to really see what can be used and leveraged in your organization to advance and accelerate your cybersecurity strategy and agenda.